Welcome back to Inner Warmup, where your inner work begins. I'm Taylor Elise Morrison, creator of Inner Workout, and you, as always, are our expert guest. Thanks for being here today. Before I get into our final deep stretch, our last episode of 2022, I've got a couple announcements, things I want to get on your radar for 2023. So we have two events happening. First, on January 7th, we have Word Work. I don't know why I named it that, knowing that I would have to say it on the podcast. It is an inner workshop that's all about helping you work with your mantra or your word of the year. My birthday is at the end of November, so I've been using this work in my own life for my personal word of the year, and it's already been really transformational. So I'm excited to share it with you all. And then we have Camp Clarity on January 9th through 12th. Camp Clarity is our kind of cohort-based course that helps you build your inner compass. We walk through building out your mission, your vision, and your values, and your definitions of success. We've talked about it this month already. Shouldn't be news to you, but if you're on the fence about it, I hope you'll at least hop into the show notes, read through the page, and see if it sounds useful to you. It's been stuff that I've been working with in my life for years personally, and I've seen the change that it can make. Okay, so that is it in terms of announcements. Some of you probably peeped the title, saw that it said finale, and were like, oh crap, is the podcast ending? It is not ending. Did I get you there? But it is changing. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about why it's changing and how that actually relates to me connecting to my own inner compass. So last episode, we talked about the components of your inner compass: your personal mission, your vision, your values, and your definitions of success. And if I'm being honest, which by now you probably know honesty is my default mode, I haven't been fully in alignment with my inner compass. And I'm going to spare you going through every piece, but I'll share the parts that are relevant to this conversation. So one of my personal values is spaciousness. And the way that I define it for myself is having room to grow, space to experiment, and time to wonder. And I have to admit, I've built a pretty incredible life for myself and business. And it's also true that I've started to feel a little bit claustrophobic in it. I realized I have put out a weekly podcast and newsletter every week for years at this point, with very little break or deviation. And I'm finding that while that felt spacious and it felt like enough for me in the past, as I'm growing, as I'm changing, as my season of life is shifting, I need more space in order to build what's next for me and in order to build what's next for this business. Another piece of my inner compass is one of my definitions of success, one of the ways I measure success for myself. And in Camp Clarity, we talk about our measures of success and putting them in I am statements. But so for me, I talk about being in choice. I am in choice. And I realized, again, having a weekly podcast, it was just a thing that I did. Like, I literally could not imagine my life not having a podcast that came out every week. It's just, a thing that I do. Sometimes I forget to even talk about the fact that I do it and that it happens because it's just so second nature. And that's a little bit, it's the opposite of being in choice. It was an obligation. It was borderline becoming part of my identity and not in a healthy way. So what I did is what you will learn to do if you ever go through Camp Clarity, whether it's in this cohort or in a future cohort, is I clocked the fact that I was out of alignment, that my inner compass was a little wonky. And then I made an adjustment to get back into alignment. And actually, I made several adjustments to get back into alignment. It probably started with all the way back when I started thinking seriously about inner workout getting off of Instagram, because that pace of Instagram, at least from a business perspective, it felt like a lot of needing to keep up and run to be the fastest. And there wasn't a lot of space in it. It also very much felt like an obligation. And stepping back and just saying, hey, we're going to try it. That was part of me getting back into alignment. And after I did that and saw the world didn't fall down, and in fact, the business is doing just as well, if not slightly better since being off of Instagram, it allowed me to question other parts of my business, what didn't feel good, what wasn't supporting my personal mission, vision, and values, and also wasn't fully supporting Inner Workout's mission, vision, and values. The most relevant adjustment is the adjustment around the podcast, which is now becoming seasonal. After 94 episodes, this is episode 94, we have a season finale, folks. So everything that we've done before, that was season 1. We're taking January off to get some rest so that I have the energy and focus to work with the clients that I have, and also to pour into these events that we have coming up for Inner Workout. And then season 2 will be headed your way in February. The goal is to have 2 to 3 seasons a year, and the podcast will have some of what you know and love. There'll be reflection questions, but we'll have 6 to 8 episode seasons that are really centered around a theme. And there's going to be conversations between me and some incredible folks, as well as some solo episodes as well, where just like I do in Deep Stretch episodes, I show you what things look like in my life, what I'm wrestling with, what I'm playing with, how I'm experimenting. I am so excited about this new direction for the podcast. My goal is to make seasons so good and so rich and conversations that are so deep that it'll be worth the wait for another season to come. And it'll give you a chance to take a break too. I know I've mentioned this before. I have to be really mindful of the content that I consume. Even earlier today, I left something at the office, so I decided to walk my dog, go to the office and pick it up, and then come back home. And I immediately put headphones in because I have built a habit of a lot of the time when I'm moving between places, I have the headphones in. And I just had this sense from my inner wisdom like, hey, this is not a walk for listening to anything else other than what's coming up within you. And in this new awareness of the content that I'm consuming, how much and when and if, a lot of that has looked like not listening to as many business podcasts. Because for me, business podcasts are so often the ones where I'm like listening and then I feel like I have to do something, and it gets me into that cycle of feeling like I need to move really, really, really quickly and do more and try different strategies. And it's just not helpful for me. And I share all of that because I know for other folks, personal development, self-care, inner work type podcasts can be the same thing, where you're listening to all of these things and you're getting introduced to these new concepts. No matter how good it is, I hope you get value out of Inner Warmup and the other self-help, personal development, whatever category you want to put it in, podcasts that you listen to. But I've talked about how important that integration time can be as well. And so it's giving some spaciousness and some slowness and some room to breathe and let things marinate, both for me and for the lovely folks who make this podcast happen, as well as for you. So before we go into a new set of topics to explore, you have time to work with these and see what resonates and what doesn't resonate for you. what adjustments you need to make this content come to life in your own life. So, you're still going to have the Self-Care Sunday newsletter. If you're not subscribed by now, go ahead and do that, because otherwise you just won't hear from us for a month or so. And then we'll have longer breaks. This is a shorter, a little baby break that you'll have, but they could be a month, they could be 2 months as we get into having seasons. And in those Self-Care Sunday newsletters, you're used to hearing little explorations from me. I'll still show up. We'll also be having thoughts from members of the Inner Workout community as well. Speaking of which, I invited y'all to send voice notes. And we did get a few that I want to share on the podcast for this last episode of the year. So I asked folks to either share an answer to the question, what was one of the best things you did for yourself in 2022? Or to answer, how did you take care in 2022? We'll end by having you hear from the other folks in the Inner Workout community, but I'll share my answers really quick first. So for me, one of the best things I did for myself in 2022 was to build out my self-care support system. I'm working with a coach, I'm working with a therapist. I feel really well supported in who I'm working with at Inner Workout and in the other businesses that I run. And in terms of how I took care in 2022, I took care by really tapping into my creativity. I think a lot of other people would have said that I was creative before, but for some reason, I didn't feel that. I didn't own that. And so I've been having so much fun painting and experimenting and dancing. Earlier today, I was like making up a dance in the office during one of my Pomodoro breaks. That's been really, really good for me to find ways to explore and to express myself that have nothing to do with the businesses that I run. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to some other folks in the Inner Workout community. First up, we have Ore Nicole.
One of the best things I did for myself in 2022 was getting back into my love of traveling. So this has been the first time since 2019 that I've traveled, because of course we had the pandemic, and it was so good to get out of your usual comfort zone and just explore a different environment entirely. So I started off the year by celebrating my birthday in sunny Dubai, which was wonderful. And later on in the year, I did something a little more closer to home, and I went to the countryside and had a spa getaway, which was really lovely, relaxing, zen. And in the summer, I had the opportunity to solo travel to two beautiful cities in Italy, Bologna and Florence. And most recently, I took a solo trip to Paris. So I think investing in travel has been one of the best things I've done and really enabled me to have new experiences, meet new people, and just really open up my mind, because there is a whole big world out there.
There is a whole big world out there. Thanks so much for sharing. And I hope that for anyone else who is maybe thinking about getting their travel on next year, that voice note was a sign from the universe that you should book your ticket. Next up, we're hearing from Amy.
One of the best things I did this year was to start learning how to advocate for myself, my needs, boundaries, and so on. I gained a mentor in my life at the beginning of the year, and she has helped me to realize that advocating for myself is how I will begin to live life how I always wanted.
Definitely got a little bit of chills on that one. Thank you so much for sharing, Amy. And that's advice that we can all take to heart. So much of what we want is on the other side of advocating for ourselves. And what I love that you pointed out is that a lot of times we need support from other people to get there. So whether it's leaning on a friend or a mentor or a partner to help you build that skill of advocating for yourself. Last but not least, we've got Cassia.
The best thing I did for myself in 2022 was work with Taylor one-on-one for business and personal development coaching. I learned so much about myself, and my self-care is just on another level now.
I promise I didn't pay Cassia to say that. I was really humbled and honored when I saw that voice note come through. Thank you, Cassia. I'm so honored that I got to hold space for you this year. And for everyone else listening, if you are interested in working together, Begin Within will be back next summer. And that's a really great way for you to do more of this inner work in a more structured setting. Okay, that's it. That is our last episode of season 1, our last episode of 2022. Thank you so much for your time, for every moment that you've spent listening to this podcast in 2022. I hope that you are resting. I hope that you are taking care. And I'll see you for season 2 next February. Okay, take care.